Welcome to the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. The podcast that will connect you to resources regionally and nationwide to engage them in open, honest discussions so that we can inspire the growth that you need to chase the experience you want. So strap yourself in because here we go. Right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Chasing Your Experience podcast. I'm your host, Sean Smith, and special treat today, co-host Sam is back on the air all the way from Colorado. Sam, how are you, sir?
We are well. How about yourself?
If I was any better.
Be a sin?
I'll tell you what, man, I can't complain. The weather's actually been pretty decent. We've actually had good rain this year. So that's been a plus because this time last year, I think we're on like week 6 of no rain. So we've had rain and still more rain in the forecast. So I can't complain there.
Outside of having to mow the grass every other day.
Yeah, that's the downside too. But hopefully we won't have any big EHD flare-ups in this area. So,
well, you guys got us beat far beyond. The winter wasn't good and the summer hasn't been any better. For the most part, we've been in 100-degree temperatures since early July. We're into August now. It feels like we've been in the dog days of summer for a year and a half now. You know, everybody wants to talk about seasonal depression in the middle of winter, and I don't know. I get it in the summer. This is absolutely miserable.
He's like, I hate hot weather. Yeah. Yeah, your guys' temperatures. I see you send me your snaps like 100, 106, 100. Like, no. No, I was miserable when it was 90 degrees here. I mean, we're humid though, so I guess there might be a little bit of difference there.
It doesn't matter. Hot's hot. Hot's hot. And you just want to sit in the air conditioning and be a vegetable and not do shit. So
yeah, that's what I told my buddy in Texas because I went down there. He's like, "Oh, it's a dry heat. You get down there and the wind hits you. It feels like an air dryer, like a hair dryer. It's like it's still hot."
Yeah, I've been driving that poor 35-year-old Honda to work, and the AC doesn't work in it. And they just resurfaced a pretty good section of the interstate. And so with it being 106 and that sun just beating down on that new black asphalt, that heat coming up and the wind coming in the windows, I don't know if I'd just be better off to shut the windows and live in a sauna on the way home.
Yeah, hell no. I got nothing for you on that, buddy.
I got a buddy that's like, I'll look at that AC for you when I get time. Well, who the f got time?
It's like, okay, great when you have time. But the problem is when I'm going to have time for you to do it. So,
yeah, and then all to line up.
Mm-hmm. Have you tried looking to see if it's charged or not? Do you have enough Freon in there?
So the gal I bought it from, she had tried to charge it prior to selling it, and yeah, it's a no-go. Chances are it's like this 25-cent little piece that's somewhere along the system, or it's the condenser. I don't know.
Either way,
or the compressor. Sorry.
Yeah. Either way, I don't think it'd probably be too bad of a fix for you.
My motto lately has been, if I gotta be miserable, if the most miserable part of my day is the 40-minute drive home, then I've had it pretty good for the day. So
it's been a great day.
Yeah. I can't complain if that's the worst part of it.
So you guys got some hunts coming up here. I mean, here's some hunts coming. You got both you and Emily pulled tags, or at least did Emily pull more than just one tag? I think she only had the one tag this year, didn't she?
She only got the one this year. The rifle tag she likes to get usually is every other year. I don't want to say I gamed the system because the tags I drew were 0-point tags. You pretty well as a resident get them every year, but I'm hunting and that's all I care about. I get to get out. Granted, I haven't done much prep work. No cameras are out, like just nothing. It's been hot. I've been busy with work, been busy with some other things. So
yeah, this will probably be
fun. It'll
probably be your best year yet.
Maybe. I'm still on the fence sitting here on whether or not I want to get that archery elk tag for the units that surround me. I have an archery deer tag that's either sex. I might put a little more time into getting a reasonable buck this year. And then I have the early September rifle bear tag, and I'd really like to get that done this year.
You've been after that one for a while.
Yeah.
Last time you and I seen a bear together, it was like 500 yards in going away,
Yeah.
going the opposite
The,
direction.
the only time they're in range is when you don't have a tag. So
Yeah. Honestly, that's the closest I've been to a black bear that I know of.
that's a fine distance. But I mean, they're like big raccoons. As long as you're not in Telluride or Aspen where they're just desensitized to human contact.
Yeah.
But here
Yeah.
they get shot at. So
Nope. 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 And we wonder why there's bad interactions with bears and people. And it's just I don't get it.
well, and I can't remember. I know I've seen it on a reel 100 times. I wish I could remember the gal's name, but it's been one of my favorite quotes forever. You know, she says there's a considerable overlap between the smartest bears and the dumbest humans,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why we have trouble. You know,
Making a bear
keeping
proof
them out of
trash can.
trash.
Yeah. That's why we can't make a bear proof trash can. Yeah. I used that line before. Who did I say that to? I don't remember where we were at, but I ended up using that line with somebody. And then I walked away because it was something to do with a
Man,
trash can.
man, this year with it being so dry and hot, the bears are in town everywhere, every town, and you just see the Facebook posts constantly of,
Mm.
"Oh, there's a bear, there's a bear. Oh, he tipped our cans."
Hmm.
No shit.
Welcome to Colorado.
Like, at what point do we start relocating people?
Never. No, that's the problem. They get relocated into areas that they're not supposed to be.
Yeah,
That's what they're trying to do again. They were pushing for Wayne National Forest to go up for sale again
really.
here in Ohio. I think they may have just settled on just leasing it for fracking, which I'm like, whatever. I don't have a big issue with that. Like, whatever. As long as you're not taking it away from the actual public use, it'll come back
Yeah.
eventually, but leasing, fine, whatever.
Well, and I've been on enough locations, building pads, pressure washing rig mats, done stuff within the industry. At least in whitetail country, I work with guys who worked in the oil field out here. Those animals gather up around the pads because they know people are avoiding those pads thinking they're not going to be there. And then after everything's said and done, it gets reclaimed and put back to the usable land opposed to a solar field that's all fenced off and
Yeah.
nothing to get in. And it's just taking up habitat space.
Yeah. Not to mention data centers.
Yeah, that's another can of worms for another day.
He's like, no, I don't want to get it down that road.
I know a guy in the IBW, yeah, IBW as an operator, and yeah, they're coming in hot and fast. So
he's like, yeah, yeah.
that's all I'm gonna say.
Well, our season is end of September. So I guess effectively 2 months yet, I guess you could say, because this is the beginning of August when we're recording this, and hopefully it'll be live here like tomorrow. But I'm also heading over to Pennsylvania this year. I got a late invite to join a camp over in Pennsylvania for deer hunting, so I'll be heading that way for my first out-of-state whitetail hunt.
Well, that's cool. Do they still do an earn a buck over there, or is that just certain counties they do that?
You're asking the wrong person. I'm not 100% sure. I'm about to go on there. I'm about to read the regulations.
Or
It doesn't sound
maybe
like
they had a point restriction. I can't remember. I had a buddy that lived around Western Pennsylvania in college, and I cannot remember if it was the earn a buck or if it was so many points.
I think it's a point restriction. I do remember they have a point restriction. So I don't know about the earn a buck. I don't know. Like I said, I'm on to look through their regulations because I don't know much about Pennsylvania. So I got a couple months. That's not till October. They'll be the week of Halloween. Going into Halloween, we'll be there. So,
Okay.
So looking forward to that. A bunch of guys heading over for a little bit of archery time.
That'll be a good time for sure.
Mm-hmm. Look at
So, so do they have a camp or campers or
no
cabin? What do they got going on?
Airbnb a cabin.
Oh shit!
So sounds like this is a trip they do a lot, and someone backed out this year. And one of the guys has been shooting 3D and stuff with me this year because he just got back into it, and we kind of met through another mutual friend of ours. Got us together, and then he asked me, he's like, "Hey, this guy, we're not 100% sure, but we're pretty sure he's not coming. If he doesn't, would you be interested?" I'm like, sure, why not? So
Yeah.
I think altogether I'm gonna have less than $500 in the trip. So
Oh, you can't beat that.
yeah,
Just one tag, or are you gonna get two?
I'd probably just get one because we're going to be there
Yeah.
for 5 days. So, and Pennsylvania, I hate to tell you this, anything legal, I'm probably going to put an arrow through. I'm just saying.
Have to get your money's worth for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Not too familiar with Pennsylvania's antler deer stature, but from things I've seen in the past, I don't know that they get quite as big as some of the Ohio bucks.
Yeah, I don't know. I always hear people complain, because there's a lot of hunters in Pennsylvania. That's what I hear. They have a really high hunting population, which is great. Whatever. I don't really. I'm just going for the experience. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm not really
Man,
that worried about it. It's just getting away for a little bit. And
well, you've been on enough elk hunts with me and spent far more money to go home empty.
yeah, I have. Yeah, but that's a whole nother different animal though compared to whitetail. They kind of give me the idea what area we're going to be in, so I got to get on there on Onyx and start playing in a few things and seeing what to do there. I'm thinking about reaching out to a guy I had on the podcast and tell him the area we're going to be in and pay for him to do a hunt plan just to see what happens. To be honest with you,
That'd be interesting.
I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, I'll just pay for this and go and see what happens for sure.
Well, good. That'll be a good trip. Get out, stretch the legs a little bit in some new territory.
Mm-hmm. Get to saddle out and just go and experience something different,
So is it private land or public land hunt?
Public.
Kinda both public.
No, it's public.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be both state land and also federal land will we have kind of close access to.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, I don't really know what all the travel arrangements going to be, how many trucks we're taking, or how I don't know the full details yet. So I just know I'm leaving on a Sunday and coming back on a Friday. That's what I know.
And you'll probably see a Pennsylvania elk within range.
Probably. I'm probably sitting there watching him the entire time.
Yep.
Like, yep, this is my life.
I'm gonna jump right out of this tree.
I don't know, Mr. Warden, sir. I don't know what happened. I just slipped and fell, and the arrow. Listen, this is like the elite P320. It just went off by itself. I don't know. It was just sitting there and it went off. I don't know.
Listen, I thought it was a whitetail. I didn't even know you guys had elk.
It's like, you guys have elk? I thought that was the largest dang whitetail I've ever seen in my life.
If you do run into a game warden, you'll have to ask him what elevation the deer turn into elk.
Poaching's not funny, people. Speaking of poaching, I don't know much of the story, but there's a big one that broke some guys down in Central Ohio. Got a little bit of trouble. I seen like 40 counts of poaching.
Yeah. I think did I send you something about that last night?
Yeah, you did.
Which I'm sure you were already well privy to, but
yeah, I've heard about it. So I just it's like the I don't know. It's like the big buck culture is such a freaking cancer sometimes, because that's all that was about was
well, yeah, it's that sponsorship pressure, the social media pressure, all that starts to build up, and it's hard to perform. You think let's put it in the aspect of, say I'm a baseball player and I started out really good and I'm slugging home runs, all of a sudden I start having a year I decline. Those peds start looking awful tasty.
Yeah, I get it. I see it, but at the same time, it's like, guys, like I don't know.
I'm not defending it. I'm just saying that it's
Yeah, no.
very like I could see how it would be easy to slip through that crack of like
Yeah,
I worked so hard to get here and now I'm gonna lose it. And I'm not
yeah,
defending it by any means, but I could see how you get there.
yeah. I don't know. I think it also helps paint the picture of what the unrealistic expectation of what hunting is and how that becomes how that gets promoted in social media and stuff. Like, listen, that's not what you see. It's not what it is. And so much so that there's a lot of people that go way out of their way to either skirt the system or they're dropping money to go do very private hunts or, several things. Like it's not just what your average hunter runs across.
Well, and it's not just Joe Blow YouTuber that's screwing up like this either. I mean,
No.
we've had very recent in the spring a pretty prominent case come out of a very influential social media hunter.
Yeah. You talk about lampers.
Sure, I wasn't gonna say names,
I'm
but
not
yeah,
I'm not discussing the case. It's just the one that came out.
no, yeah, no, he was definitely one of the bigger ones of the year, which
Yeah.
unfortunate. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that one's been settled yet. So I think that one's still kind of an active case or like court case happening. So
yeah, I haven't seen much recent. So
yeah, be interested to see where that ends up at. Uh, I don't know. I don't know enough to really talk about. I just know that that was probably who you were talking about because he was one of the big ones that came out earlier this year.
yeah,
Then you had those guys here in Ohio. It's like, listen, it's not worth it. Like I do. I mean, I have a couple like pro staff positions, right? But none of them have any stipulations that I have to like um shoot and kill big deer. Like it's not it at all. Like so I don't know. I will say I've had multiple people tell me that, you know what, you do pretty quality work when they watch my videos. You would blow up if you killed a 180-inch deer. I'm like, what's the difference? I mean, if I do or if I don't, like I'm to the point now where I might not, if I continue to film hunts, I don't know if I'm even going to film the actual kill. I think I'm just going to just film the hunt itself and maybe just watch me, watch me when I go through the shot. So you don't even see the animal. I don't, that's the kind of thing that kind of irritates me. Not, and it's not jealousy because, I've showed you pictures of that big deer that I was getting on camera during the daylight, a couple of years ago. He got shot last year. It's not like I boo-hoo cried and jumped up and down and threw a fit because somebody shot him. Like, hey, good for you, dude. As long as you did it legal, I don't really give it. Like, I'm happy for you,
yeah,
dude. I don't, I don't know. Maybe it's just my personality type. Maybe it's just who I am. Like, I don't get that excited for him. Like, I like to see him. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, like, I get excited when a decent buck shows up. Like, oh, if I see one that looks that I don't, like I said before, I say it again. If when a deer walks in and I'm like, oh yeah, it's probably gonna get shot. I don't
gets the
know.
blood going. That's
Yeah,
all it needs.
it,
I'm just happy to have a deer like in proximity.
uh-huh.
I mean, you know me back there, just buck repellent, buck repellent. You know, I killed plenty of those. Just never a ton of opportunity at bucks, and it's not like I'm hunting any different areas than you, aside from across the hill or somewhere else. But just
Yeah.
some reason, which I'm not too concerned about. I'm just happy to get a doe and put it in the freezer and
Mhm.
hunt some more that season.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure,
So
man. But also your guys' opportunity is a little bit different than ours too. Like, well, I know you're talking about back here in Ohio, but also there in Colorado, you have more species to chase after, but your seasons are a little bit more limited than ours. Like our top species in Ohio, whitetail deer, we can hunt for darn near 6 months from start to
Mhm.
finish. So with
Yeah,
multiple
and
species,
you're looking at a month in September for archery season. I think 5 days for rifle one. There's an overlap with muzzleloader and archery for a week of the season.
mhm,
Um, and then rifle two is roughly 8 or 10 days. Rifle three is I think they just increased it actually to make it a little bit longer. I can't remember what it is now. And then fourth season is I think 5 or so days. And
Mhm.
then sometimes, depending on unit, you can get a late season cow elk tag that might run a month. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's some good opportunity, but you also have to play the game of what tags do I want, what tags don't I want, and when do I want to be hunting. And
Yeah.
so basically flip a coin or prioritize. And they do have list A, list B, but you get into all that crap where you can hold an A tag and a B tag, not in concurrent season, as far as I'm aware, unless it's maybe a muzzleloader B and an archery A. Don't know. Um,
No, I get it.
can't remember. So there is opportunity, but it is a coin flip on what you want to prioritize.
Yeah. It yeah, there's opportunity and it's a little bit more it's like you said, you gotta play the game right. And what's great about Ohio and some of the states like like us too, though, like we buy a deer tag, it's good through whatever season. Like it doesn't matter. It could be archery, muzzleloader, uh, gun season. Um, we don't have to buy a different tag just because the season changed. So
And whitetail just aren't a very fragile species. Winters
yeah,
get hard out here for some things and does hurt the population. I know some
yeah,
of the deer and elk and pronghorn up in the northwest end of the state got hit pretty hard a couple years ago, and they're still pretty strict on the tags since that happened.
yeah. I mean, you got to be like you can't have a free for all to go up there. You got to give them time to recover. You're going to
Mhm.
have probably two or three. You're going to have at least 2 or 3 good seasons up there for probably get a good recovery back. So especially if you're going to get anything of any like age structure.
Mhm.
That's kind of like down southeast Ohio right now. Like it's going to take some of those farms, a lot of those farms, a long time to get another a good age structure back because of all the deer they lost from EHD.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just that's all it takes.
Mhm.
One little rip in the system.
Yeah. Like I said, we got a lot more rain this year, and I'm hoping that does not happen like that again. That was scary for some of the people. I mean, I was down in Southeast Ohio, and I'm not saying that what they were saying wasn't true. What I'm by this, like, luckily, when I was down there was with my boy when we were hiking. You know, they would tell you that you go down to these areas, like it just smells death from all the deer decaying from because they had just died. Right. Luckily, we didn't run into that when we were down there. So we went down there outside Marietta.
I know whereabouts you're at.
Yeah, I know, Yeah, we went down there to do a hike.
It's a good spot. Good spot for it. I never got to trounce around it, but I know it's a cool area.
Yeah, that Archer Loop Fork is Archer's Fork Loop, whatever it's called. Yeah, Archer's Fork Loop. It's a great hike. I like that one. You could do it in one day if you really push. I mean, you'd have to really push because it's like a 12, 14 mile hike. But you can easily turn it into like a good, not a full 2-dayer, but you can have like a half day the first day, spend the night, and finish out the next half of the day, the next morning.
Yeah. Yeah, if you
So,
got time, there's no sense of burning through it. Take time, enjoy it.
yeah.
Get a terrible night's sleep in a tent.
I don't know, man. Some of the stuff they have out there today, you can get a pretty good rest in a tent these days.
Man, I don't know. Take your word on it.
He's like, I don't know. I ain't been able to sleep in a tent forever.
It's mostly my spatial situation in my pack. Like the sleeping pad's great. The sleeping bag's great. The pillow situation for me, because I need, a mile high of pillows stacked up
Mm,
so I can sleep. I can't sleep flat for anything. And so until I get that figured out, which half the time I take my camp pillow and I put my pack under it
mm.
just to get some kind of elevation.
Now, do you sleep on your back or do you sleep on? Or are you a side sleeper?
I'm a side sleeper and it sucks.
Have you tried one of those like Philo like king size pillows that they have from Nemo, or at least looked into them?
No, I'm a bargain guy, and if I've got it, it's good enough.
All right, I'm just trying to help you out, buddy. I'm not saying you have to buy it. I'm just saying like maybe check into it. I don't know where you would go if anybody would have them in stock where you could.
Oh,
I would tell you REI would be the place to go, but I don't know. There's some shady stuff going on with them. So
Oh, that's cool. I don't go in there often, but we have one, and I'm sure there's something there. Maybe the Bass Pro or Cabela's nearby.
Yeah, maybe.
Sportsman's Warehouse, maybe.
Yeah,
But that sounds right up REI's aisle.
yeah. I mean, it is. It's. I like REI. When you go get stuff because they have it there. You can test out most of that stuff. Like I think every pad they sell, at least the ones that I've been to around here, every pad they sell, they have one that's inflated for you. You can just take it, lay it down on the ground. You can get on it and roll around, see if you like it or not. So,
Huh. Yeah, I've never spent enough time in there to know that. I have a cousin that shops there often. He says REI stands for rent everything inside. Uh, so he'll buy it, use it for his trip, and then return it.
yep. Yeah, that's the big thing I know about REI. And they have, I mean, you actually, if you pull it off right, you could probably go to one of their garage sales because the stuff they get returned, they'll sell it again in that garage sale or whatever. And so
Yeah.
you can get a little bit cheaper. So
All I know is every time I'm in there, they're like, "You want to join the co-op, man?" And I'm like, "I'm in here once every 12 years now."
no, I think it's like $20. I don't know. I forget what it was. I joined it, but you get some pretty good coupons like about 2 or 3 times a year. So
I mean, outside of the last time we were in there this year to buy a couple of the chug caps for our Nalgene's, the last time I was in there was to buy a Sterapen, and that's been 5 years ago.
it's like it's been a while.
Yeah,
I can't tell last time I've been in REI. It's been a while. It's been a while. Actually, I bet you it's been about as long as you have been in one, to be honest with you. Last time I was there. And I wanted to take a minute for a special announcement. And I'm super excited for this one. But before I get too far along, just something doesn't feel right. Just hold on a minute. There we go. That's better. We had the owner of Sea Deer Camo on our podcast, Jason Kalman, several episodes ago. And from that, we started to build a great friendship and a partnership. Sea Deer Camo is a camo brand that is made by hunters for hunters. From base layers to outerwear, Sea Deer Camo has you covered from early season through late season. It is functional hunting apparel that won't break the bank. And we are so happy for this relationship with Sea Deer Camo that we have a code for you that you can use right now if you head over to huntseadeercamo.com, punch in the code CountryFried10, and save yourself 10% on your order as you get ready for season to just hunt. And while you're there, don't forget to pick up one of my favorite articles, and that is the Mountain Ops Pants. And now, back to the pod. I order most of my stuff online now, so. But yeah, if you're looking to test something out, or at least to look at it, that'd be a good place to go.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't know. In mind.
Yeah, I don't know about some of these other online retailers. If you would buy it, if they will take it back, like that's the probably run into. I don't know. Don't know.
I don't know. There's always Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah, there's that too. There's that too. Well, buddy, I think I'm ready to probably make some people mad with this podcast.
Well, I enjoy that because I enjoy people getting very upset. That's why I work in construction, and specifically construction for the government.
There's a double dip on that one.
If I can ruin your day by closing a road, I'm here for it. Get over it.
There's a 2-banger there. You got that one.
Oh no, your taxpayer dollars are actually at work. I could go sit in the office. That'd be cool too.
I've been working on getting my pocket on my shirt flipped upside down so I could prop myself up on my shovel.
Yeah, all that good stuff.
All that good stuff.
I'm sorry you have clean drinking water and roads to drive on. My apologies, sir.
Sorry we inconvenienced you for those luxuries. Well, buddy, archery season is, some of us archery season's already in, depending upon where you're at, and if you guys have an early archery season or not. In some areas, some of you may not. So maybe this might be too late for you, but for some of us, archery season is probably about 2 months away and quickly approaching. And I figured, what better time to talk about arrows and arrow performance? Because you want to know what really spurred this, but really grinded my gear so much that I decided I was going to do this, was I had some yahoo on Facebook wanted to argue with me about arrow performance, more so about weight of arrow, speed of arrow, and energy of arrows. I'm like, all right, let's do this because I've done a lot of my own personal testing with this, and I know exactly the direction this goes. And I guess before we get too far along into this, because this will probably be one of the things that you've probably heard, but I guess there's a few things we could talk about. One of the big things a lot of people are referencing these days is the Yates study that Easton and that James Yates put out. It's 2 years in the they've done 2 different years, a 2025 and a 2026 version. Basically, I'll give you the quick rundown of it. They tested arrow veins, about how well they recover, how quiet they are, and how much drag that they produce with arrows. Basically trying to see which one will recover quicker, but yet not have so much drag and also be quiet. And then we jump into the new season or the new one this year, and they talked about FOC. So, and their main focus was getting the arrow to the target, which one was more accurate, and so they talked a lot about external ballistics. And the problem with that is that we're not target shooters, we're hunters. Now, if I was more worried about shooting a 3D target all the time, those external ballistics is fantastic. Like those work. I would shoot the lightest arrow I can get away with and shoot as flat as I can and have as less drag as possible so that it maintain that velocity if I messed up a little bit, I would still hit the 10 ring or I would still hit that 12 ring, right? That's great, but we also need to worry as hunters, not only accuracy. I think we need to think about a reasonable amount of accuracy, but also pair that up with enough energy to actually be successful in the field. You know what I mean? So that's my problem with some of these studies that start off with being just external ballistics only, that we forget about the terminal side of things. And I think that's where I kind of want to go with this podcast. Like, I'm not taking anything away from the Yates and their study, because what they've done has shown you what, basically I'll tell you what basically they're trying to show you is that here are the veins that have the least amount of drag with a good amount of lift recovery. In other words, they'll correct your bad shot faster, and they're kind of quiet, right? They may not be the best recovery vein. They may not be the least drag vein, and they also may not be the quietest. But these veins right here are, of all three of those categories, are the best because they score really well on those. And it's the DCA Super Savers. I'll just throw it out there. That's what they were. It's the veins that they were talking about. It's the DCA Super Savers. One of the things that they did say, though, is how FOC really increases your accuracy. And I'm sure you probably haven't read a whole lot into this or seen this, but what they're talking about, the front of center. So with the FOC, they found that as they increased FOC, the downrange group sizes shrank. In other words, and they shrank an actual, like, a good margin, like 2 or 3 inches, like maybe, I think, if you increase FOC by like 5%, every 5% increase, you shrunk your group size down exponentially. So there is some truth behind having a higher FOC arrow.
So does that having that extra weight up front, does that help your arrow stabilize a little better in flight, getting past that archer's paradox, or is there anything to do with that?
So really, really, with archer's paradox, and I could be way off in left field with this. Archer's paradox really only affects traditional shooters or anyone shooting off a shelf or someone shooting off a rest that doesn't move, because you're shooting the arrow through that and it's always in contact with that. And so it has to flex to get around that. That's where that paradox happens, is that time. If you're shooting a drop away rest, it's already gone before the arrow's left the bow. So It doesn't have to shoot around it, and you're not shooting off the riser, you're not shooting off the shelf. So what the FOC really does is instead of the heaviest part of the arrow being behind the point, so if you see it tracking, so it's all up here instead of being back here. So it's more pulling the arrow versus pushing the arrow. So as it's flying through the air, or if it comes to impact something, it's not the ass end of the arrow trying to push it through, which will then cause it to flex. If you have more weight in the back, if you have more weight in the front, it's more of a pull per se. It's not necessarily, but it's more upfront, and it doesn't, all that weight in the back isn't there to flex the arrow so that the nock can stay behind the point, more flush, and keep that energy in more of a straight trajectory versus, flexing out in a way. So,
and then probably losing some of that kinetic energy because you're taking that from the back end.
yeah. And what it also does is it affects the center of pressure. And I don't want to go too far down in this, because this is like physics. So when you look at a projectile, you have two competing forces. You have the center of pressure, and you have the center of gravity. And so, and I may have misspoke when I said center of pressure. With the FOC, what you're doing is you're bringing that center of pressure, center of gravity forward versus back. So with the higher FOC, that center of gravity is basically the balance point of the arrow is moving forward. And then you have the center of pressure, which technically is where basically all the resistance and the drag is starting to happen on the arrow, where the majority of it's, it's not that exact point, because it slides up and down the arrow because you have pressure in the back and you have pressure in the front. So you kind of find that happy medium where, it'll slide to wherever the center of that pressure is. And the problem with projectiles is that you always have center of pressure and center of gravity that's farther away from each other. And then the further away that center of pressure and center of gravity goes, it wants to tumble, because you have these two competing forces that are starting to tumble with each other. And that's where spin, when you start to get rotation, helps with that, because the broadhead or whatever is creating lift. And so if it's only left in one plane, it's creating lift in one way, but as it's rotating, that lift kind of is always moving. You track what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so it hopefully keeps it from tumbling. And so that's why I'll tell you this. So that's also why with bullets, because if you shoot a heavier grain bullet, you know how they get the grains heavier in a bullet? They make it longer. So what happens there is that your center of pressure is further away from your center of gravity. So that causes it to want to tumble or yaw as it's flying. And so that's where the spin rate comes in. So the heavier the projectile is, the faster the spin rate has to be to stabilize it, to keep it.
So then that creates the differential in your barrel twist rate depending on what you're using.
Yes. Yeah, that's why you jump up to a faster spin rate or twist rate in your barrel, for higher weight projectiles, because you're trying to keep it from yawing too much. So there you go. That's your physics lesson for today. And now someone's probably going to come in here and say, that's bull crap. But so basically what that FOC is doing, so you have it's moving that center of gravity kind of closer to the center of pressure so that it doesn't yaw as much. Basically. Okay. I'm sure someone's going to get on here and say that I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm talking about, and fine, whatever. I don't care. But that's the best explanation I give it to you, because the center of gravity, like I said, is the balance point of the arrow. And then the center of pressure, that's usually somewhere up towards the front of the projectile. And that changes. You can change that based upon like your fletchings, how much drag are they causing versus how much lift you're getting from the broadhead or whatever's up front. So that center of pressure can change a little bit. So, but moving that center of gravity forward, it helps with stability of the arrow. And then the more stable the arrow is, the more accurate it is, and then the less energy it has to expend to correct itself.
Makes sense.
So, but yeah. So anyways, FOC matters. And I will tell you, I would tell you this out of the study though, like, I will say that a lot of that was like really, really kind of like splitting hairs in the difference in some of those. So just be cautious when you look through that. Like there is some merit to it, but what you're looking for is trying to reduce drag so that your arrows maintain their velocity longer, but you also don't want to lose lift recovery, so that if you have a torque shot or something happens, because we're hunting, that's going to happen, that it will help correct your arrow flight faster so that you don't lose that accuracy. But you also want to get a little bit more of that front of center and push more towards, get beyond 10, try to hit somewhere in that sweet spot between like 15, 18% FOC, somewhere in there. So, but there was no ceiling when it came to FOC in that study. Like the more the FOC increased, the more accurate the arrows became.
I mean, I can attest to some of that. Since increasing the front arrow weight, I've typically shot 100 grain points uh, my whole career. Um, and then switching to 150, there's been a noticeable difference in my groups.
Mm-hmm.
And even dropping my draw weight by 10 pounds, from 70 to 60 because of some elbow issues, they're still, I mean, they are punching hard. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely something to it.
I think this will be a point we're going to get into in the podcast too. I think most people don't understand how much energy a modern compound bow is generating, even at like 60 pounds. Like I know the models that we're going to be talking about in this podcast was done with a 70-pound bow, but still at 60 pounds, you're still slinging pretty high energy out there. So yeah, especially as you add that weight. I know some people's gonna be like, "What are you talking about?" Like, because that's one of the myths that is out there. But so I don't know. You ready to dive into this a little bit?
Yeah, let's jump in there. Let's get these numbers going and see what some of the research you did came out to be.
Awesome. So I guess let me ask you this: what do you think is probably what do you think is one of the things you always hear about arrow, or I guess one of those misnomers or fallacies about arrows? What are some of the things that you think that you've heard?
Man, it's hard to say, because there are numbers you can put with it, but you can also sometimes, depending on how you do it, get the numbers to run in your favor.
Mhm.
That's the fun thing with math. You can, yeah, numbers don't lie, but you can also skew the numbers
Yeah.
in a sense, depending on how you controlled the test.
Yeah.
Earlier in the years, because I don't pay as much attention now, but back when I did, earlier in the years, it seemed like everybody light, fast setup. You need to be shooting a light, fast setup, and that's that. I
Uh-huh.
was shooting, and I can't remember what grain of arrows I was shooting at one point, but I was shooting the Maxima Reds
Uh-huh.
with a 100 grain point, and out of a 70-pound bow, I think I was pushing 305
Yeah.
feet per second. And
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know if that's moving. I think it was.
That's pretty good.
And you know, accurate, fast was great till I put a shot on a deer behind the shoulder and it was broadside. And as the arrow entered, the deer, went down as they usually do, flexed
Mhm.
down and hit that shoulder blade and it pushed that arrow off course significantly.
Yeah. Yeah. Big
And
deflection. Yeah.
and that definitely got me thinking about my setup and a change and how maybe the light fast arrow setup isn't the right one for me at least.
Well, that's a great way to put it, and I think that's what we're going to really dive into as we really start talking about these things, right? Why do you think? I guess let me ask you this: why do you think most people are worried about fast? Why do you think the number one reason most people are like, I need to shoot a fast arrow? The faster, the better.
The reaction speed off the string of that deer dropping.
Okay, reaction time of the deer, and that's probably the number one reason most people say I need to shoot a fast arrow. I want to shoot a fast arrow. So we're talking about time to target, from the time that it's released from the string to the time that it gets to that target. And we're going to talk about some figures here, and I've tested this. So to kind of preface this, all the numbers we're going to be talking about came from my Elite Exalt 29.5-inch bow or draw with 70 pounds. I'm sitting at about 80% let off with the bow. I shot 4 different arrow types. Well, let me rephrase. One arrow is my hunting arrow, what I'm going to be using this year. So I have the data from it already. But then I shot a 400 grain arrow, and I shot a 580 grain arrow, and I shot a 718 grain arrow. And then I captured this data using a lab radar to get their velocities. And I selected velocities at 20 and 60 yards, which pretty much 60 yards. That's for most bow hunters. and I'm not talking about Eastern bow hunters, I'm talking about Western bow hunters. Yes, you guys can spread it out a little bit further than that, but for the most part, 60 yards is a max for like most archery hunts for most hunters, right? And when it comes to out west, you can get further if you want. I get that, but 20 to 60 was a pretty good range. Plus, with precision cut archery, when you're doing their charts and stuff, they say they get pretty good accuracy from a 20 to 60 yard spread. So as long as you get those two velocities, it gives you a pretty decent accuracy throughout, as far as you want to take it. So this is where the data comes from, is from those arrows. And as we talk about these, I'm going to be putting charts up for you guys to see. So let's talk about time to target for a minute. So that's pretty much like the first chart that we're probably going to bring up on the screen. And you're going to notice that if you look at this, I have it broken down into 20, 40, 60, 80, and 100 yards. And the numbers you're seeing there is in seconds. So those are the numbers that are on the bars themselves is the number of seconds. So you're talking 200 milliseconds up to 260 milliseconds at 20 yards, the difference between the two, right? So let's talk time to target. 20 yards. So the lightest arrow, which was my fastest arrow, I think it was at 305 was its top speed at the bow. It would reach a target in 0.2 seconds or 200 milliseconds at 20 yards. The heaviest arrow would reach a target in 260 milliseconds, or in other words, 0.26 seconds. All right.
Okay.
So let's jump to 60 yards for a minute, right? And the only reason I want to do this is, I guess I'm proving a point here. At 60 yards, right, the arrow from the lightest arrow would reach the target in 620 milliseconds or 0.62 seconds. The heavy arrow, the 718 grain Lincoln log, would make it there in 0.8 seconds, 800 milliseconds.
I like the nickname. Big fan of that.
The Lincoln log, right? That is 180 milliseconds difference between the two. I guess to put this perspective,
I was about to ask.
Put in perspective, do you know the length of an average blink of a human being?
I didn't, but I can see the chart below me telling me.
It's somewhere between 100 and 400 milliseconds. So 0.1 or 0.4 seconds. So the difference at 60 yards between the light arrow and the heavy arrow is, in all intents and purposes, less than the average human blink.
Yeah.
The point I'm making, I guess the point I want to make with that is, I don't think so. Time to target to me is not that big of an argument with this, because we can show calculations that shows that, now granted, if you're shooting a slower bow, if you're shooting a lighter poundage, a lighter draw weight, a lesser draw length, your velocities are going to be a little bit slower than that, but you might see a difference. And I would really like to test that out. And I've got just the person I would like to use to do this. And I was hoping to get it done before we did this podcast, but it just didn't happen.
It's one of those timeline things we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, she shoots 40 pounds and has like a 24 or 25 inch draw. Like she's tiny, right? And I would like to do the same thing with her, just to see what the difference is, because we already know the arrow's not traveling that fast. But I would tell you that Lincoln log from the bow was traveling 230 feet per second, and it still reached a 20 yard target in 0.26 seconds.
And so from your lightest setup, you're probably traveling anywhere, between 40 and 50 feet per second less?
From the lightest?
Yeah, from the lightest.
Yeah, somewhere
roughly.
Yeah, roughly somewhere in there. But as we start to move along in this, though, like, you're going to start seeing that the heavier arrow maintains its velocity longer than the lighter arrow. So that discrepancy at 20 yards starts to shrink as we get to the further distances. So as the light arrow is shedding velocity much faster, the heavier arrow is maintaining it for a longer distance. So that
you kind of equate it to a car braking and a semi braking that's loaded. So
yeah, actually that's a good way of looking at it. And also, it's momentum, and we're going to get into that here here in a little bit. We'll get into the momentum, the energy part of it. But usually time to target is one of the first things people complain about, right? What is the next thing that people want to know about a fast arrow? Like, why do I shoot a fast arrow or a light fast arrow? What's the next thing other than time to target? And I want to take a moment to talk about something that has transformed my approach to hunting. That's mock scrapes. I was introduced to the Scrape Doctor system 2 years ago in Columbus, Ohio, and let me tell you, it changed my game. If you're looking to dive into mock scrapes or just need a fresh perspective, I highly recommend checking out scrapedoctor.com. Their insights have been invaluable, and it's been great to see how my skills have developed since that first meeting. What's more, our relationship has blossomed into a fantastic friendship. And to celebrate that, I want to share an exclusive deal with you. Use code CountryFried15 at scrapedoctor.com to save 15% on your purchase. Trust me, you won't regret it.
Man, this one might have me. I don't even think I have a guess. If we're all being honest.
That's right. We talked a little bit about it, about target shooters, about range forgiveness. So if I'm off just a little bit with a lighter, faster arrow, we believe that it's not going to be as detrimental as a Lincoln log, we'll say, right? Because that Lincoln log has more drop because it takes longer. I guess let me explain this. When you fire a bullet, an arrow, whatever, out of a whatever it is, so we'll say an arrow. As soon as you release the arrow off the string, gravity is starting to work on that. And what you don't know is that if we shot the arrow perpendicular to the perpendicular, and we dropped an arrow from the same height, the arrow that's traveling forward and the one that's dropped straight to the ground will hit the ground at the same time. That's because gravity affects those things equally.
Okay.
The only reason that the other arrow, say like we start to shoot distance, the only reason that happens is that we're creating an arc in the arrow so that so it can not overcome gravity, but it can withstand gravity's effects and then fall back down, right? So eventually, no matter what, like eventually you can get to the optimum, like whatever velocity or whatever angle it is. Eventually the velocity is going to drop enough to where it's just gravity is going to win and bring it back down.
Essentially turn into free fall.
Yeah. Still traveling forward, but it's going to bring it back down to the earth, or back down to the ground. So gravity affects things equally, no matter what. That's why when you shoot angles, you always shoot for the horizontal distance. You don't shoot for the true line of sight because gravity affects it the same way, regardless if you're pointing it down, pointing it up, or, straight across. It affects it the same way.
Okay.
So it's that range forgiveness. So let's talk a little bit about range forgiveness for a second. Excuse me as I go through my slides here. I had prepared slides. Nerd. So basically, we're going to be talking about trajectory. So the next one here that I'm going to show you guys, this is the amount of drop in inches per yard at each one of these distances. So what you're looking at is the bottom numbers is like the 20 yards, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 yards. And then the bars are representing the amount of inches the amount of inch of drop per yard of travel at that distance. So if you kind of look through these, I'll just throw out a couple. Let's look at 30 yards. At 30 yards, the light arrow is experiencing 0.6 inches of drop for every yard it travels. And then the heavy Lincoln log has 1 inch. So in other words, less than half an inch difference between the two per yard of travel. Now, if you do that, say like, let's hypothetically say that you decide that you want to aim, let's say you range an animal or you guess an animal to be 30 yards, but it's 35 yards, right?
Okay.
So the light arrow is going to drop 3 inches at that distance. And then the heavy arrow is going to drop 5. So yeah, it's a little bit of difference, but it's only 2 inches. All right. Do you track what I'm saying?
Yeah. Sorry. I was looking at the chart trying to keep up here. I was on the wrong chart.
It's all right, buddy.
But yeah, no, I'm tracking. But you say only 2 inches. You get that split second where the deer belly's down too. That 2 inches can make a difference.
Yeah, and it can. but I think I'm trying to think what the biggest reaction time, like 0.3 seconds or something like that. So it's somewhere in the time frame of any one of those arrows, plus its ability to drop down. It's some variables to get into. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And you can think too, left or right, which I know we're talking trajectory right now, but even at that in your left or right positioning, that 2 inches can be a liver or a lung.
Yeah, they can. Let's stretch it out to 60 yards for a minute. And so at 60 yards, let's say same scenario. You miss range by 5 yards, right? You think it's 60, but it's sitting at 65. So in other words, you're going to have 1.3 inches of drop for every 5 yards for every yard. So you're looking at 6.5 inches of drop with the light arrow. And a heavy arrow, now I'll give you this, will put you at about 10 inches of drop. The difference.
Yeah.
So
that's no small feat.
no, it's not. It is not. So let's go one more step here though. And let's talk about I think this is a really good chart. And it's the next slide. And the next one I'll bring up for you. What you're looking here is this is true range forgiveness. So as we go across the bottom there, you're going to see the yardages of 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60. And then what this means is think of a 6-inch circle, right, on your target. So most hunters, you probably have heard this. Most hunters they want to be able to put their bullets or their arrows inside of a pie plate, right? That's their, if I can do that, I'm good to go hunting, right? Have you not heard that before? Because I'm sure you have. Yeah. I'm inside a pie plate. We're good, right? Well, that pie plate is about 8 to 9 inches. So shrink that down by 2 to 3 inches down to 6 inches, right? And so what these numbers are showing you is that that's the amount of error that you can have in your range and still hit inside that 6-inch circle. All right. So let's talk about, let's talk at 20 yards. So at 20 yards, essentially you could misjudge this by 11 yards and still hit inside that 6-inch circle, both high and low. So if you're minus 11 yards off, so you thought it was 9 yards, which you're not going to, you're on a 20-yard pin and be done, right? But you misranged it to be 30 yards, or you misguessed it to be 30 yards, and you'll still be inside that 6-inch circle. All right. With the Lincoln log, it's 6 inches, 6 yards difference. So in other words, 20 yards, 14 yards, or 26 yards. We can jump up to 30 yards, which is 3.5 yards for the heavy arrow, or 7.5, about 7 yards for the light arrow.
Man, going through this chart and never seen it before. Well, I scrolled through the slides yesterday, but didn't put much correlation to them. But no, now that you're explaining this chart, it has my interest peaked to go see what my arrows are doing within these differences. Just holding a 30 pin on it, 25 yards or whatever.
Yeah. I see. So what do you notice though? What do you notice though as you get further out?
Seems like the yard discrepancies shrink between the lightest and the heaviest.
You know why?
So what I'm looking for, momentum's carrying with the heavier arrow better.
Yes, and it's maintaining its initial velocity more.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Yeah, it hasn't shed as much as its initial velocity. So 60 yards, while 20 yards and 30 yards seems to be a big one. At 60 yards, there's only a 1 yard difference.
Yeah, I mean that window just
shrunk, right? So. Yeah. I guess for the guys, I'm not trying to tell you to shoot heavy arrows. The point is I'm trying to dispel some of the myths that are out there that some of us have been told to believe. And I'm not saying that the heavy arrow crowd is 100% correct. And I'm not saying that the light arrow crowd is 100% correct. I'm not saying one's wrong and one's not. The other one is wrong as well. I just want to make sure to try to dispel some of those statements that are out there with actual data. And what
And
I'm
with the data, it looks like most things, we could just all come together in the middle and be very happy.
Yes, that's kind of the point behind. I guess the point behind this. What I want to say though, what I want to get out here though is at the number one thing I hear people say. Well, at distance, if I miss range at 60 yards and it takes a couple of steps, that lighter arrow is going to give me a better trajectory, and I know I'm still going to hit. In reality, it's not that much of a difference between the two. It's really not. It's 1 yard
not
difference.
not when you have the numbers compiled with you know as evidence. I mean,
Yeah, you still have to be actually fairly accurate of yardage to be successful in that.
yeah,
I'm sorry, guys. I hate to tell you this, but that's it. Like at close up, yeah, there's a bigger difference because the velocity of that lighter arrow is higher and it hasn't shed it yet. So, but does that make sense to you? Like, are you?
yeah. No, I'm a big fan of this chart. I like this one. This is and it's not that of the who's right, who's wrong. I just find this one specifically more interesting.
Yeah. Now, do know you're probably going to see a little bit of difference for you because you're shooting 60 pounds, right? And
Oh,
then
for sure.
and you are you a 28-inch draw?
Oh, I think I'm 28 and a half.
So your velocity is going to be a little bit slower than mine. So you might see a little bit more discrepancy. But as you go further out, you're probably going to see kind of a similar thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I want to, get a board, not of any significance, cardboard or something, and get a 6-inch circle painted on that bugger with a bag target behind it and
Mhm.
see what happens,
Yeah.
kind of gauging off of this chart.
Yeah. I mean,
I like it.
yeah, no, that one was the one that was a little bit really like some of the things that was very eye opening for me was the time the target. And like it's not as different as people say it is. Like it's not that different. Yeah, the slower the heavier arrow is a little bit slower, but it's not like we're not talking seconds difference. We're talking milliseconds different. Like there's not like you fired the bow and then you got to wait for the next train to come in before the arrow gets to the target. Like it's not that at all. Even at 100 yards, it's not a second difference. It's milliseconds difference between the two. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm just trying to present data to dispel some of the stuff that people are out there saying. To like, listen, lighter, faster is not always better, and heavier, slower is not always better either. But let's be reasonable here, right? All right. So, do you have any other questions or anything about the first thing we talked about? So we talked about this is kind of more the external stuff. So we talked about trajectory and we talked about time to target.
No, I'm sure the comment section will be thrilled to jump in though.
Oh, I already said we're going to make people happy with this because there's outside of broadheads or the bow you shoot or the truck you drive. I don't think there's any more passionate argument than there is between the light. Well, I guess compound bows and crossbow shooters. I guess that one's a pretty heated one too. But light arrow versus heavy arrow, like that's a pretty passionate one. So
yeah, it is. Like I said, I've been in both fields. I can't say I haven't shot anything over or even close to probably 500 grains, but I've landed at a home in the middle. I think my arrows are around 470, 475 in that vicinity. I don't have a good way to weigh them. So
yeah,
I just stick them on the wife's kitchen scale and they read about an ounce. So I think we're looking at about 475 grains.
yeah. If you're about now, yeah. If you're a little over an ounce, we'll put you at that. I think an ounce is like 437.5 grains. I think.
And that might have been without my broadhead on.
Yeah. Well, man, without the broadhead, that means you're jumping up even up in the 500s then.
Maybe. It's been a while since I've done it. All I know is they thump and I'm happy about it. So
That's in the end, like guys, gals, listen to this. In the end, that's all that matters is is, are you successful with it? Because if you are, then keep doing what you're doing. Like you gotta have confidence in what you're using. The idea behind this, I guess, is just to be more of a like, hey, listen, here's what people are saying. Here's what the actual data is. And it's not as much of a discrepancy as what you're led to believe. And I'll tell you
Kind
this,
of, kind of, we're arguing over nothing,
yes, pretty much.
as the hunting industry likes to do within itself.
Now, now the now, right now, the thing that I'm really more interested in all of this is the terminal ballistic side of this. I'm not talking terminal ballistics because of fixed blade versus mechanical head. Like we can have that debate too. Because I've shot both. I've been successful with both. I really don't have a preference of one or the other. I will say that if I'm leaning more for penetration, I'm going to use a fixed blade. But if I'm wanting a little bit more forgiveness, and this is out of the Yates study too, and I agree with this. Like it is hard to beat the accuracy of a mechanical head versus a fixed blade. A mechanical head, a good slender, a good low profile mechanical is way more accurate than any fixed blade that exists out there. It doesn't create as much lift, and you can get away with a little bit.
And depending on what you're into, I haven't been using fixed blades all that long, mostly since I moved out west. But if you're wanting that rip and blood trail, man, the difference with the mechanical and the fixed is day and night, at least in my experience.
Right. I will a caveat to this is I've shot fixed blades out to 100 yards, popping balloons. Like, you can do it. You can shoot those accurately, right? You just need to tune your bow and you need to have relatively decent form while you're doing it, right? Mechanicals give you a little bit more room for error. We'll just put it that way when it comes to your shot sequence. So they're a little bit more fairly accurate. I'll just put it that way. And the A study showed that, like their group sizes with a mechanical was significantly smaller than the best. I can't say significantly smaller, but they were smaller than the best flying fixed blade in their test. So, but let's see here. Let's talk about terminal performance. And like I said, I'm getting beyond fixed blade versus mechanical. I'm talking more along the lines of energy and just penetration in general between all these, right? Here is the biggest thing that I want to tackle with this, right? And this, I want you to, everyone who's listening, and Sam wants you to kind of think of this as we go through this next part of these slides. Lighter equals faster equals more energy. Hold on to that, right? I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's false. This is what you're being sold. This is what you're being told. Lighter, faster equals more energy, right? So put that in the bank, hold on to that, and we'll see how well this holds up. So let's talk about energy, right? How do we measure energy when it comes to our hunting implements? Bullets, arrows, whatever.
Foot-pounds.
So we're talking about kinetic energy, right? Yes, kinetic energy is the easiest way for me to explain this to you is how hard something hits. We'll just boom, right there. Right? That's the easiest way for me to explain it. Kinetic energy is calculated using mass and velocity, which I think is velocity squared. And then you divide it by something. I forget exactly what it is. I'm not going to actually give the formula, but you get it from mass and velocity, right? Is where kinetic energy comes from. It's the same thing that also momentum comes from, but kinetic energy likes velocity more than it does mass. Well, momentum likes mass more than it does velocity per se, right? So kinetic energy, mass, velocity, this is the equation you do and you come up with it, right? According to Easton, and then the numbers I'm about to discuss to you guys has been published by Easton. They've been regurgitated by several other entities. Victory is where I actually pulled them from, but we're going to talk about what I guess the minimum amount of KE for different game species or different categories of game in the United States is, right? And we can probably go to other countries with the same thing because we do talk about a dangerous game, but let's just keep it to North America for right now, right? What do you think small game? What do you think would be the amount of energy you need for small game? Think coyotes, things along those lines.
For archery equipment, I don't have a good barometer. I haven't seen any studies to even gauge, going from, man, I don't even know. For medium game, I have an idea off of ballistics and whatnot from ammunition, from bullets and whatnot.
Mhm.
And, deer and stuff like that, you're looking at typically 1,000 foot-pounds
Yes.
coming out.
Yeah.
But as far as small game, even on the rifle end of it, I couldn't tell you.
Small game, according to the publication by Easton and also what you can find on Victory, it is 25 foot-pounds is the recommended minimum kinetic energy, right? 25 foot-pounds. Now, you did bring up a good point, and that's about bullets and arrows. How do bullets kill animals?
Oh, man.
Sounds like I didn't know I was getting grilled on this one.
I did not. By the punch it delivers, what's the word I'm looking for? The kinetic energy it delivers, and how the bullet, I thought I had a better word for it, but how the bullet either stays together or comes apart.
Okay. So you're talking about retention?
My best guess.
Yeah, weight retention, if the bullet stays together, expansion on all these things, because we're talking about energy transfer into the soft tissue, right? So a bullet kills by creating not only a permanent wound channel, but also a temporary wound channel, because the energy transfer that's brought into it expands and then collapses back down, right? On top of the permanent channel that it creates, right? So it's actually creating more trauma. That's why we tell you want 1,000 foot-pounds or less, or 1,000 foot-pounds of energy for a deer when it comes to bullets, right? Do you know what the minimum recommendation for deer is for archery?
No, sir.
Between 25 and 41 foot-pounds of energy.
That's because the singular wound channel you're creating retains its size, or
because how do we kill things with archery? What is the number one reason things die? Because it's shot by an arrow.
Man, I know the word and I can't think of it, and it has to do with the way the broadhead cuts through the soft tissue.
Yeah, it's basically hemorrhage. They die from hemorrhage, from lacerations and hemorrhage, right? Basically they bleed out, or you can create other issues. Basically it's because they're bleeding, because they either drown in blood that's building up in the lungs, or the blood pressure drops to the point that where it's not continuing to push pressure or push oxygen stuff to the brain. They go unconscious and then they die because of shock, basically, is how an arrow kills. So that's why when we look at the difference between 1,000 foot-pounds from that bullet, we can get away with 25 to 41 foot-pounds of energy with an arrow, because we need a sharp stick to go through and cut and create hemorrhaging is what we need to do. All right. So what do you think for large game?
I'm going to take a stab off of the medium game and go 40 to 55.
40 to 55. That's pretty good. It's actually pretty good. 65 is where they top it out at. So 42 to 65 foot-pounds of energy. And they're talking elk, boar, black bear, that size of animal, right?
I'm surprised that the black bear doesn't. I guess maybe depends on where you're hunting black bear, but I'm surprised the black bear don't fall into the medium
game. Yeah. That one I could, and as soon as you started to say that, like, I know exactly where he's going with that. And it does and I can see that too, because a lot of people do talk about black bear a little bit more thin skin, and
they're soft, from what I've heard. And when you look at, the foot-pounds needed out of your rifle, for black bear, at least in this region within our game books, it's 1,000 foot-pound minimum.
Yeah. So, and that's the same with deer, medium size game. So I don't know 100%. I didn't go into the actual Easton publication to find out exactly why they put black bear there.
Maybe just the weight. I mean, you're not getting, which I don't know how many 300-pound bears we're getting around here, but you're probably not getting 300-pound deer.
No, very, very few. I mean, yeah. So yeah, you can get 300 to 400 pound like boars in the black bear realm, depending where you're at and whatever, genetics, whatever. So maybe
What they have available to eat.
Yeah. So maybe that's how they fell. That's probably a good reason as to how it fell there is because of weight. Because they can, I mean, they're going to outweigh, a full grown boar black bear has the potential to outweigh a white-tailed deer significantly. So, all right. Here's an easy one for you. Dangerous game, big game. So we're talking grizzly bears, Cape buffalo is what Easton's claiming, right? How many foot-pounds do you think? This is an easy one.
80.
80. Actually, that's a good one. That seems to be the top end that they're calling for. So, but 65 and above, 65 foot-pounds and above for the big game, right? And I just finished recording an episode with Brent from A3 Archery Custom Bowstrings. And let me tell you, I'm impressed. Brent has over 30 years of experience building custom bowstrings, and it all started from his own personal need as a professional indoor archer, needing a set of strings and cables that he could rely on for precision and consistency, and not constantly dealing with peep twist or bows coming out of time. Brent offers both platinum and premium sets of strings. Platinum strings are made from the new B99 Bloodline fiber. You're not going to find a better fiber out there. And the premium strings is from the old and true DCY 452X. So if you're in the market for a set of strings and precision and consistency is at the top of your list, check out a3archery.com and order your set today. And as a special treat, use the code COUNTRYFRIED. It'll save you 15% on your next set. So how do you think our arrows are going to line up with this? If you're going to hypothesize, right? Now, I will help you with this. The lighter arrow was the fastest arrow, and the heavier arrow was the slowest arrow. And then the two arrows in between, they just kind of like progressively kind of, were one's a little slower, one's a little faster, depends on, where it sits.
Okay. So now what's the question?
How do you think these arrows stacked up? What do you think?
As far as the foot-pounds chart here, and how they're going to stack up for each species or
each species
size.
Or even when it comes to just energy. What do you think? Because remember we said earlier, like everyone wants you to think that lighter, faster equals more energy.
So I have listened to podcasts and read studies, seen some of the things from the Ashby Foundation on the higher FOC and heavier arrows with, the larger game in Africa and how that ended up helping. No, I could be misspeaking because it's been a while. How that ended up helped the push for legalization of archery equipment used in Africa for some of the dangerous game. So I'm going to lean, that the heavier the arrow with better FOC is definitely a stack up better as the game gets bigger. And I mean, if you're holding really good foot pounds at, if you're at 65 and above, you're going to be able to take everything down from the coyote to the grizz. So that's kind of where I'm leaning.
Yes. So let's get into it. Right. So the next chart we're going to show you guys is kinetic energy at varying distances. 20, 40, 60, 80, and 100 yards. And some of the caveats you're going to see off to the side, these are the, so to kind of help this, if you looked at the medium game, we give you a range of like 25 to 42. I split the difference and made it 33. So that's like, we'll just say that's the happy medium between those kinetic energy points, right? Large game, same thing. I think it ran between 42 and 65. So I picked a happy medium between that as my reference line here. And then big game was 65 and above. So I kind of showed you kind of like these, I guess, lines of reference to show for each one of these kinetic energies. And I'm going to be honest with you, right? If you are big game hunting, not big game, large game hunting, elk, everything out to 100 yards out of my bow would do it. Light, heavy, didn't matter, right? So let's be honest, they all would have done it, right? However, at 20 yards, the light arrow had 77.4 foot-pounds of energy. Remember, light fast equals more energy, right? Well, hold on. The heavy arrow shot or produced 82.3 foot-pounds of energy.
So at 20 yards, you're not seeing a massive discrepancy. You're not seeing, 10 foot-pounds.
No. And you know where you finally start to see 10 foot-pounds or about 60 yards.
As you create the farther distance.
As you create farther distance. And we already discussed why we're seeing that, because that heavy arrow is maintaining its velocity longer because of momentum. So, but let's go out to that 60-yard mark. So 67 foot-pounds with the 400 grain arrow versus 76.6 foot-pounds of energy. Now, I guess I want to say this though too. So even though I've given you minimum, right? Like these are the minimum, it doesn't hurt to have a little extra, because it's just a little bit more insurance for you, right? That you have enough energy. Like if you want to skate, because I'll tell you this, I have shot white-tailed deer with a 398 grain arrow at 300 feet per second, which is going to give me similar results as what you're seeing here. And I've not gotten pass-throughs on those deer. I've had it happen more than one occasion, right? At 20 yards or less. And it's like, great. That's 77 foot-pounds of energy, but it wasn't able to drive through the deer, right? And this is behind the shoulder.
So, and then this can put you in a different argument, for bear defense. Oh, you don't want a 9mm because you lose all your energy. Oh, you want the 45 or the 44 mag because it'll maintain that energy and actually thump it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can see the argument for self-defense. But bears are, now this is a whole different thing, and this is strictly opinion on my end.
Yeah.
I don't know. Bears are on all fours and long, so you're going to get that velocity and trajectory to continue through with that 9mm. Kind of like you're seeing with this chart, but you're just not getting as heavy of a punch immediately.
Yes. Yeah. And we'll hold on to that thought, because the next thing we're going to talk about here in a minute is going to be momentum. And that's going to be, I think, while kinetic energy is a good thing to know, momentum's also important, especially for archery. When it comes to firearms, right? How do I say this? So in the hunting world, you're trying to get sufficient penetration into the target to create an ethical harvest that also does not create so much damage that you have meat spoil or loss of meat or loss of whatever, right? In the self-defense world, you want to create massive damage with you don't want to, what we call, perforate the target. So 2 P words here for you: perforate and penetrate. Perforate is through and through. So, what I try to do with an arrow is I want to perforate a deer or perforate whatever animal. I want 2 holes in the animal, the entry and the exit hole, right? In self-defense, especially in like a area, you're in a town or something like that, you don't want over penetration, or you don't want to perforate the target. You actually want the part you really, the ideal round will penetrate through enough layers to get into the vitals and then dump all of its energy there, is what the perfect round would do in a self-defense situation. So it's kind of a happy medium. It's a very tricky world, and it's hard to get that exact thing that you're looking for. Mm-hmm. But hold on to that thought, because we're going to come back to where that particular thing, kinetic energy, might be more important, because you want that energy to drop, but you don't want the momentum for it to keep pushing it through as it meets resistance. So you track what I'm saying there?
Yep.
Okay. So, but yeah, so that's basically when it comes to kinetic energy. Now, if you're going to go big game, right? I don't know. That lighter arrow might not. This is where you see where a lot of people say, "Hey, let's jump up to a heavier arrow." Right? Jump up to that heavier arrow if you're going to go big game. Because you see where you're starting to lose. You're starting to lose that momentum. You're not momentum, but you're starting to lose that energy pretty quick at distance. And I don't know exactly how far away you want to be from a grizzly bear when you go to drop an arrow in it. Like I'm just saying. But
Man, I'm dropping the bow. We're going.
like, you know what? Never mind. I'm out. Any other questions on that, man?
No, sir.
All right. So let's go to the next one. Let's talk about, and I got two different things to show you guys in this one. And I was debating if I wanted to go with the other one, what I was trying to call optimum momentum. I think I might just stick with the chart that basically was a calculation based off of the Easton kinetic energy chart. But the next one for you is the amount of slug feet per second that we're looking for, which is your momentum, right? Ooh, dropped my phone on my thing. So momentum, while kinetic energy talks about how hard the projectile hits an object, momentum talks about how far that projectile can push once it starts to meet resistance. And here's what you want to know. Here's something I think that's important for you to know about momentum and archery and all this together, from external ballistics all the way up to terminal ballistics. A bullet, an arrow, insert whatever, does not have its own propulsion system on it. So in other words, the only propulsion that it has, the only energy that it gains is what it gains while it's still connected to the string or while it's still in the barrel with the gas pressure building behind it, right? The moment that bullet leaves the muzzle, the moment that arrow leaves the string, that very split second right there is the highest amount of kinetic energy or the highest amount of energy that arrow or that bullet will have right there. Because the moment it hits the air, it starts to meet resistance from depending from just air pressure, from gravity to wind, so all these other effects. As soon as it leaves the string, leaves the muzzle, it's being affected by these. It's shedding energy. So momentum is that projectile's ability to overcome that resistance and not shed its energy at a faster rate. And that is why you see the heavier arrow maintain its velocity, although it comes off the bow much slower. Like, honestly, listen, I will say this. I think it was 75 feet per second difference between the light arrow and the heavy arrow, somewhere around there. So it was a significant difference between the two, but it maintained its momentum much. It only lost 12 feet per second from 20 to 60, while the light arrow lost much more than that. And that's because of momentum. So the heavier arrow has more momentum than the lighter arrow. More big mo.
No, I'm right there in the brain fog department here.
So
you heard my best explanation on how a broadhead creates hemorrhaging.
So let's talk about momentum. And momentum is shown by slug feet per second. Slug is another unit of unit of measure for weight. It's not necessarily like pounds, or it deals more with mass. Anyways, small game, less than or equal to 20 slug feet per second. Medium game, 20 to 30 slug feet per second. Large game, 35 to 43 slug feet per second. Big dangerous game, 48 plus slug feet per second. With all that being said, right, here's the differences here. When it comes to momentum, the light arrow at 20 yards created 0.524 slug feet per second, and the heavy arrow generated 0.724 slug feet per second. If we go all the way to 60 yards, right, we then hit 0.49 slug feet per second for the light arrow and 0.698 slug feet for the heavy arrow. So honestly, if we wanted to go off some of the, like, I would call like the optimum charts per se, which I skipped over those, but it kind of falls a little bit short of those. So if you look at the minimums, right, the minimum we'll just say the minimum 48 slug feet per second for a dangerous game. All of those are going to be able to do it, but we are dangerously close to not at 60 yards with a light arrow, to not having that.
Yeah.
And like I said with the kinetic energy part of that, this is something you want to have a little bit of an insurance policy with. Like the more momentum you have, it's more like insurance that you're going to, let me reword that. That minimum is everything was perfect. You didn't hit any heavy bone. You didn't hit a shorter square. You had a perfect broadside soft tissue hit through and through. And probably you're using either a small mechanical or a fixed blade head. That's where the minimums for me fall in, right? So you want to go above that, right? You want to get above that. And I think that's where we start to get into the optimum. And I'm going to say, I'm not even going to go on the route here and tell you that, because I think if you look at the optimum, it wants you like 80.80 slug feet per second for dangerous game. I'm like, holy crap. Even me at 29 and a half inches and 70-pound bow with the heavy arrow, I didn't touch that. I think it was like close to 0.7, whatever it was, foot or slug feet per second. So I didn't even hit 0.8.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, even with that being said, they're looking at large game being somewhere about 0.72 slug feet per second. That heavy arrow fell below that at 30 yards. And the light arrow never touched it. Never touched it.
No. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's the optimum. I mean, I guess I guess I'm framing it as the optimum. I don't know if that's really optimal, to be quite honest with you, because we know people. I know people who've been successful with lighter setups. We hear it all the time. We see it all the time, right? I get that. But I guess the point I'm making with this is like, try to find that happy medium there, or, you want to try to have as much of that momentum as you can withstand, right? That you can roll with, right? And yeah, it's just it's a tricky one there, but at the same time, like the animal has a say in this, and that's the thing. Like they move, you don't necessarily have the best angles. You want to try to get as much momentum as possible out of your setup. So you have that little bit of insurance, you have that little bit of extra give where you can drive deep into the soft tissue and create, the wound channel that you need to be as ethical as possible. You track what I'm saying there?
Yep.
Yeah. Any questions?
No. We're looking to do our best to not lose that animal or put it in a dire situation, or when you get into the dangerous game thing, put both of you in a bad situation. We're out here to be as ethical as we can, make the best decisions we can.
Yeah.
And having information for you to choose from, you can see the charts yourself and make your own decisions. Now, the majority of us probably aren't going to be hunting much dangerous game, but a handful of us are going to be hunting large game, as elk hunting and black bear hunting is, at least in my eyes, grown in popularity. The numbers for sure help get us another standpoint of rethinking our arrow setup if we're unsure, we're taking on a new expedition and becoming new elk hunters or bear hunters.
Yeah. So looking back at the previous chart, 65 foot-pound, or I'm not foot-pounds. Let me rephrase that. 65 0.65 slug feet per second was the low end of the optimum of the momentums, right?
Okay.
So even with that being said, the light and the arrow setup I'm using, which is in red, the 472 grain, didn't even touch that. The next one, the 580 grain did, but only at 20 yards. You know which one did it throughout all of it? The heavy arrow.
Yep.
The heavy arrow. So I don't know, folks. I guess somewhere if you want to look at that and fall somewhere between the optimum and the minimum. And like I said, those two different charts, those are coming from two different sources. Um, I will say this though, that there has been a study done by several entities. One I do believe was the U.S. Forestry Service, and I'm trying to remember where the other one was from. But what they found was that as momentum of the arrow increased, so did the efficiency of the harvest rate of the hunters. So as they increased their momentum, in other words, they were shooting. Now, there's two ways you're going to do this, right? The easiest way for all of us to do it is just by increasing arrow weight, right? The other way to do it is that you need to increase your draw length or your draw weight. And some of us, it's just not going to happen, right? So, but as that momentum increased, so did the efficiency and the recovery rates of the hunters. Just saying. So, I don't know, folks. It's one of those things that you need to take with a grain of salt. And I want to touch on one last thing, and that's penetration. So, I think if, as a wise man, if you would look through all these charts, which direction do you think, which of these arrows do you think is going to get more penetration? The lighter, faster, or the heavier, slower?
So early in the closer ranges, I don't think it's gonna be that large of a discrepancy. But as they step out, the heavier arrow is gonna have more penetration.
It's almost like you've seen my chart that I'm about to discuss. Almost like,
But I mean, even as we've gathered the information from the other charts, the speed, the slugs. Well, the slugs wasn't even massive. What was that second chart? Trajectory. The speed and the trajectory. You could see a similar correlation.
yeah, as distance gains, the heavy arrow kind of begins to win out when it comes to energy retention and stuff. And you're absolutely right. So the last chart that I want to show you guys is so this is a study that I did, or a little test that I did several years ago, back when Country Fried Outdoors was early. And I know some of you are going to be like, when I say this, are going to come off the hinges. I shot ballistic gel, all right, a consistent medium. I shot ballistic gel, not to say that, oh, this only got 8 inches of penetration, this wouldn't work in a deer. That's not why I did this. The idea was to have a consistent medium, to where as I shot different arrow weights with the same broadhead on it, to see on if there was a difference in the amount of penetration that it got. And guess what? The heavier the arrow got, the more penetration it got. And as Sam said earlier, at 20 yards, there wasn't that much of a difference. There was a little bit of a difference, not much. At 40 yards, when I did it at 40 yards, there was at least an inch difference in penetration between the two. And those arrow weights were a little bit different than this study that I show you some of the other charts have been. I'm trying to remember what my top arrow weight was in that one. 618 grains. So this was between a 422, a 530, and 618 grain arrow. So at 20 yards, the 422 grain arrow got 12.06 inches of penetration. The medium weight arrow, 530 grain, got 12.375 inches of penetration. And at that 20-yard mark, the heavy arrow got 12.562, basically a half-inch difference. At 40 yards, it was darn near an inch difference between the light and heavy.
Yeah. Just shy
of an inch difference. Now, this is ballistic gelatin. It's thick. It's intended to stop stuff, is what it's intended to do. And I was using the Montech M3 broadhead at the time. Each arrow had the Montech M3 on it from G5, and was shot into the ballistic gel. I pulled the arrows. I didn't leave them in there. Taped before I pulled them, so I had the exact depth that they were at, measured them, and recorded that. You can go check it out on our YouTube channel if you want to go watch it. It's in our testing videos or whatever. I did both at 20 and 40 yards, so you can kind of see it yourself. So, but heavy arrows, penetrate better. Was it drastically better? I don't know. The jury's still out. But then again, it is a gel. So I don't know.
And if you're so wound up, uh, go try it, man. Get your stuff out, see what you come up with. I mean, the worst you can do is get the numbers off of your instrument and find out what's working for you the best.
Yeah, I mean that's really I cannot like recommend precision cut archery enough. Not only just to make your sight tapes, but also to get this data for you. And then get yourself a lab radar. You can do it with a chronograph. It's gonna be a little difficult, especially when you start to get distance. You can do like the launch speed and get some calculations, but it's more accurate if you can actually get what the actual velocity differences is at those distances, because your drag coefficient might be a little bit different. So your arrows might be slowing down a little bit more because of your vane choice or whatever. So, and we would like to thank you for your support of the Chasing Your Experience podcast. If you'd like to continue to support the podcast, then please check out our online store at bonfire.com. There, you can purchase exclusive Chasing Your Experience podcast t-shirts and hoodies for all members of your family. Check out the link down in the description to find the store. And now, back to the pod. But yeah, do it. Go out there and see what you're doing. See where you actually line up at.
Yeah, and to each your own. Again, you like to nerd out on this stuff, get in depth and run these charts, run these numbers, and I appreciate it because it's really cool to see. It's really cool to look at it from this type of standpoint. But I'm gonna go out and see what kind of groups I'm shooting and what I can do to improve them, and then I'm gonna be happy to go. I know, outside of a general idea on arrow weight and a rough estimate off of, kinetic energy calculator, momentum calculator off the internet. That's about as far as I'm going with it.
No, I get it. And you're right. And I guess the thing I want to say is that as you notice in most of those, like all those arrows are actually going to perform sufficient enough for most of the big game in America based upon just that data alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least if you look at the minimum side of it, right? If you try to get more in that higher end, some of those might fall a little bit short of those. So if you're looking to get a little bit more insurance, you might want to jump towards that higher weight. Or as you see with the big game, not even my 718 grain arrow, my bow was enough technically.
Yeah.
Right? So I'd have to jump up in arrow weight or poundage or draw length, and draw length ain't happening. Right? I could probably
I don't know. They're doing those leg extended surgeries. You might be able to get one with your elbows.
Right? I don't know, man. I don't know if it's worth it.
But again, I mean, like you said, across the board, you'll perform well with anything in North America for the most part. And like I said earlier, looking at the charts early on, looks like we could all meet in the middle and be pretty damn happy.
Yeah, we can. And we definitely can. I would just caution people to err on the side of heavier versus lighter. Like if you have a choice between a couple of different arrow weights, I would tell you to probably go a little bit heavier just to get that extra momentum boost and that extra KE boost. If you want my honest opinion, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. One thing I did too, because once you get past a certain broadhead field tip weight, you're having trouble finding anything to use. You could probably find 200 grain field points pretty easy, but you're getting pretty skimpy on the broadhead selection. If you want to go that heavy. I added a little more to my arrow. I think I added an inch to my arrow instead of cutting it where I usually do. So just to get a little extra out of it.
There's a lot of different things that you can do. You got to be careful getting longer arrows because you'll start to affect your FOC, because the longer the arrow gets, if you are not changing the weight of the arrow up front, it actually reduces your FOC percentage. So if you went shorter, you would get a higher FOC percentage, but that we might be splitting hairs, to be quite honest with you, when it comes to that.
Yeah. I don't know.
No,
that's just something I did, and shit, they've been shooting good.
So I just wanted, first and foremost, I think when I told you to hold on to that lighter equals faster equals more energy. I think we disproved that today.
I don't know about but you most certainly seem to have.
I think now I listen, you're on the podcast here with me. We sat through this. You got to listen to nerd out with me on this. So yes, I think we have dispelled that. Um, well, the other thing is that if here's the hard one for a lot of, and I've got a young lady back here who's getting into archery. Um, and a lot of people are worried about the time to target thing. She's shooting a really short draw length, a really light poundage. You know, she just meets the legal minimum. The only way that she's going to gain more energy out of this, right? There's a few ways. You either have to get a faster bow, right? A bow that's already IBO faster, right? You need to either increase your draw length, which that's not happening. You need to increase your poundage, which with work, she could probably add 5-10 pounds to her draw weight.
For sure.
Right. Or you increase your arrow weight. That's where you're going to get your energy differences from. And that's where the big argument that I made is that your bow is probably the number one determination of how much energy you are generating, because that bow at that setting is only going to generate X amount of energy. Because if you look at the energy charts, especially at the up close, my average energy was about 80 foot-pounds of kinetic energy. So even though the light was like 77, but the heavy was only like 83. So like in the middle is 80. So my bow is capable of generating about 80 foot-pounds of energy. And I don't care how much weight I put into that or how much I take out of it, it will fall somewhere close to 80 foot-pounds of energy. That's what my bow is capable of doing. And that's based upon the speed of the bow, the draw, which is based upon the draw weight, the cam speed, you know, everything went into that. And then the brace height is another thing you can look at. But that's a lot of stuff to talk about. But basically here, I guess what I want to say is that it's mostly the bow and the setting that your bow is and where you're at as an archer when it comes to your specs as an archer. It's mostly the bow. And you can manipulate that through really putting more weight in your arrows. If you want to gain more energy, more momentum, if you don't have the ability to go with a higher draw weight, or you can't get more of a draw length out because that you're at where you need to be, you're at your perfect draw length, then it's going to be adding weight to your arrow with your bow. That's it.
Yeah.
The lighter, faster. I will tell you that if you can so when it comes to faster, generating more energy, let's look at that 400 grain arrow for a second. The only way that arrow is going to generate more energy is that you need that weight itself to be going at a higher velocity. That's the only way that lighter arrow. We can't take that lighter. We can't increase velocity by going to a lighter arrow because, as you've seen, even though it's going faster, it's generating less energy. So,
yep.
Guys, lighter equals faster does not equal more energy. Sorry, it does not. I'm sorry. So, guys, at the end, girls, it's about being ethical. It's about being able to comfortably shoot what you're shooting. Make sure that you have enough energy, enough oomph, and enough push to get into those vitals and create the hemorrhaging that you need to ethically harvest the animal. The end.
Now, one thing I'll touch on, you brought up the minimum draw weight allowance in Ohio. Now, this has always baffled me since moving to Colorado. So in Ohio, where you have whitetail, that's about it as far as your mid game. Coming to Colorado, the minimum draw weight requirement is 35 pounds. And maybe I need to ask an expert, but I just still can't wrap my head around that.
How is it Colorado is less than Ohio, which is whitetail? And to be honest with you, I don't know. I don't know how that got set between the two. I'll go on a limb and say that it could have been optics, political optics of why they went one way or the other. So
maybe a higher density of traditional archers.
I don't know.
Maybe they've updated it since. I don't know. I've got the book in front of me here. I could probably skim through. And make an attempt at finding it through all this nonsense
Ohio's,
before the end of it. But
yeah, Ohio's been a 40-pound state, I think, as far as as long as I remember.
yeah, I mean, I remember being a kid starting to get into it, and my dad's like, "Well, you got to be able to draw 40 pounds," and I remember not being able to draw 40 pounds, going, "Oh, I guess I'm probably never gonna bow hunt unless I keep working really hard at getting this thing drawn back."
Yeah, for sure,
But
man.
but no, I appreciate all the information. You listen to me try to ramble my way through some of the questions you asked.
No, I appreciate you.
Being out in the heat all day, I'm just
No,
woo.
listen, it is what it is, man. This is and I probably fumbled through some of this stuff too, but I guess hopefully with the visuals and stuff though, maybe we can like demonstrate. Like, I'm not saying, like I said earlier, I'm not saying both either camp is 100% right. Right. I think there's a middle ground between the two.
Mm,
I've never shot anything over I think 580 grains was the highest arrow weight I've ever shot, like in a hunting situation. And now I'm back down to 472. The lowest I was at was like 430, but in the past I have shot 398 grain to 400 grain arrows, and
mm,
I had penetration issues with those, and I've not gone back to those. Like, I will not go back to that light again.
yeah,
So,
yeah. No, after my experience with that deer late season there, you were there for that. Later season, not late season, later season there in Ohio. I haven't looked back myself. And I did find what I was looking for on page 14 of the 2026 Colorado Big Game Brochure. Hunting laws, section 4, subletter C, minimum draw weight of 35 pounds. Weird.
so I wonder, I almost wonder if they all base this off like the Easton studies,
Hey,
because Easton gives you that minimum kinetic energy.
but I mean, how old's the study? I mean, this
Oh,
probably been in place a hot minute.
yeah, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about the new Yates study. I'm talking about those numbers where they got the kinetic energy numbers from, that a lot that I read
Oh,
was that Easton publication.
yeah, maybe.
Which that's
So
also
if you can't draw 40 pounds in Ohio and you can draw 35, could buy a tag, I guess.
I don't I don't know, man. Like, I've seen, I'm not going to name who, but I have seen some light poundage people that's had issues with whitetail deer.
I'm not disagreeing. Um, I'm more just curious, and maybe we hop off here and I jump on the computer and dive into why that is.
He's like, I'm gonna
Because
turn to the old Google box here in a minute.
hey, that's the only thing I got PhD in, man. Leave me alone.
Dear Google, I have a question for you. Just make sure you always tell her thank you, so that when AI takes over, they know that you were nice to them.
That's right. Help you fake it till you make it.
Right? Well, Sam, you got anything else good for the order, man?
No, everyone going out this season, good luck. If you drew tags out west, best of luck to you on those as well. We're sitting, or at least I'm sitting on a good handful of tags. Probably not going to fill half of them, but if I fill one, I'll be happy. So
Yeah,
good luck. Be safe out there. Stay within the bounds. You know, we started off the podcast a little hot with some recent poaching issues. Don't stop. Stop it.
man. Yeah, it's not worth it. If you even question if it's okay or not, it's probably not. Just don't do it. If you question it, it's probably not. Even if it is, and you still question it, you probably shouldn't do it. Yeah, I can't. I I reflect that as well. Like, I agree with what Sam said. And guys, be safe out there. Guys and gals, be safe. Best of luck to you guys this season. Hope you guys have the best season ever. And hopefully you guys get out there for opening day. I'm not going to steal a line from Hush, but I am like, you only get so many opening days, guys, girls. Get out there and enjoy it, right? Go out and enjoy what, what's been given to us or what's out there for us, because there's enough people out there that's trying to take it away from us. And while I'm very strongly starting to believe that it probably will never go away, um, it could be restricted heavily at certain points. So go out and enjoy it, folks.
Oh, it they're taking more steps here. Our first season just got rearranged in an order to where I might be mistaken, but you can only when you harvest fur bearers, you can only harvest 2 of each species per day. So they put hefty restriction on
Yeah,
fur bearers.
that's one of
Um,
the low lying fruits too. Predators and trapping is one of the low lying
well,
fruits.
the other problem with the way they went about this, I don't want to say they like it's CPW, it's just solely the commission. They tried to ban fur harvest, they tried to ban fur sales through ballot box biology. The people of the state voted it down, and for whatever reason, it got brought back in through a commission meeting, and the people who voted no got no say, and it just got pushed right on through. They did not ban fur sale. I think that was one of the stipulations of them being able to kind of just cram this down everyone's throat. So I'm not 100% on how it all went down, but it
Mm,
was against the will of the people,
Surprise, surprise. Hmm. Oh well.
or at least the voting population.
Well, the what I'm worried about for you guys is that your governor, who appoints all these members, is on his way out, which means um, we now are in the do or die time to get whatever um, political moves done. So it's a very scary time when you hit these points in politics, is because if they have a mission that they were trying to accomplish, they're going to really start pushing for it here towards these last 6 months. So um,
Yeah,
good luck, or at
but
least the last part of
between
the
that and our rifle ban on certain styles of rifles with detachable magazines, yeah, they're
Mhm.
really making a push.
Yeah, it's just it's the nature. It's what happens when it comes to this.
But you know, you roll with it. Hope it gets better. Kind of, kind of
Yeah,
like an abusive relationship.
you want to know, and I don't want to. I don't want to go much further in this, but you know what surprised me was the whole Oregon thing. Um, that not that someone was pushing to ban outlaw hunting, farming, whatever, right? Not to do that, but actually, like the Oregon Democrats were against it. Like, yeah, no, this ain't a good idea.
Um, I think it's mostly because of the farming, the ranching thing they tried to push through on that.
Yeah.
I think that was the nail in their coffin. But they'll be back to push for it again. Different
Mhm.
language. They'll take some things out to make it more appealing, um, and make another run ahead. They always
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
But just gotta keep fighting the fight. Don't get wore out.
Right.
Even though it seems so much easier just to throw your hands in the air and say, "All right, whatever, do what you want." There won't be any wildlife there later when there's nobody to protect the wildlife. So
Yeah. Unfortunately, but all right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you're still here and we haven't made you mad by any of our comments or anything regarding arrow choices and stuff, I want to at least give this caveat. At the end of the day, as you've seen, almost all those arrows would work for probably 90% of the large of the species here in the North America. And so at the end of the day, this is just a look at some of the data that we are able to generate and to try to dispel some of those misconceptions that are out there. I'm not saying that a light arrow is not a lethal arrow, because it can be. Um, what I'm saying is that just be careful with what you hear and what you see, because as we showed, lighter, faster does not equal more energy. Um, and that don't be afraid to give yourself a little bit of an insurance policy and swing a little heavier, or swing and err towards more momentum and more energy versus trajectory, because we're not shooting 3D targets, because it's not just about getting the arrow to the target. It's about what the arrow does once it gets to the target. And both of those are vitally important. So find your happy medium to where your arrow performs sufficiently in all those, right? And go out and chase that experience that you've been after. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you spending the last 2 hours listening to us as we went through these topics. We know that your time is valuable, and we do not take it lightly that you've taken that time to sit and listen to us talk about these topics. If you would just take a few more minutes to rate and share the show, it helps us out more than you would ever know. If you would like to check us out on our social medias, you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. You can find the podcast, the audio version, on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, and Amazon Music. And you can find the video version on YouTube and Spotify. So share it with your friends, leave us a comment, leave us a review. We appreciate it. But until our experiences cross paths again, may you guys have the courage to fail, but yet the humility to learn. And as always, we hope you stay safe out there, and God bless you.
Thank you for listening to the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. Before you go, don't forget to leave us a review and follow the show on the podcast platform of your choice. Are you hungry for more Country Fried Outdoors? Then follow us on Instagram at Country Fried Outdoors, or subscribe to our YouTube channel at Country Fried Outdoor Productions.